Oliver, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
In the LSI conference, and the backdrop's not too bad.
It's not too bad indeed.
And you're down from San Fran?
San Francisco, yeah.
You're with Intuitive, right? But from an investment perspective. And I know the industry has been wondering, how does that work out? So can you give me the layperson terms on that one?
Yeah.
The download on it.
So I joined Intuitive about 2 years ago to set up our new venture fund, and we launched that October last year. So we're a $100 million venture fund investing in early stage companies. So think of Intuitive obviously at the forefront of minimally invasive care over the last several decades. Our fund is really focused on finding those early stage companies, those innovators that are advancing the next 20 years of minimally invasive care. And so we're looking at diagnostics, devices, digital, and really backing those future leaders.
Historically, it's always been said some of the best engineers in medtech have come out of Intuitive. Hardware, software, firmware, vision systems. And it's interesting that Intuitive has set up that fund in order to see where are we going over the next 5 years. Your perspective, what kind of investments or what kind of technologies do you see are going to move the needle over the next few years?
So it goes from early disease detection to preoperative and pre-procedural optimization to the interventions themselves, where Intuitive traditionally has been focused, and to follow up and recovery. And I think that entire spectrum represents the future of minimally invasive care. So we're using the venture fund really to back the ecosystem of early stage companies that are going to be the category leaders across those. And so it includes everything from liquid biopsy and early disease detection as we see cancer identified at stage 1, stage 2 versus the sad state of affairs where it's often identified so late. That's going to really change the future of standards of care, of interventions and procedures. And so we want to back those players. We want to understand what early disease detection means through our venture fund and back those winners. And we're also really excited about the convergence of medical devices and biotech, an area that we call focal therapeutics, where we see opportunities for delivering energy, immunotherapy, cell therapies, gene therapies, and through our venture fund, investing, again, those category leaders in these therapeutic domains. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be the future of minimally invasive care.
Have you made any investments so far? Are you able to share with us those? Any in process that?
Yeah, we've been busy. So we officially launched in October. The one deal that we can share and we've announced is in an early stage clinical decision support and AI kind of digital surgery tool called Keown Health. Really exciting. Spin out of Duke University, leveraging AI data across the perioperative pathway to make sure that patients are receiving the right care at the right time, bespoke for them. And so it's about taking longitudinal data and really driving perioperative teams around clinical decision support. So getting a lot of traction. And the other areas that we've invested in are in these kind of focal therapeutic spaces, as well as in some device spaces. So yeah, just getting started here, building out our portfolio, but off to a fun start.
And you mentioned something earlier where the majority of device manufacturers have been focused in that OR, right? That sliver of technology in the OR. But now I'm seeing some being able to broaden it and early intervention or early engagement with the patient, and then post. So Intuitive has done a fabulous job of setting that standard for minimally invasive surgical procedures. As much as you can share with us, is this going to take them in more partnerships? Is it an investment strategy to roll them into Intuitive? Does it become a multi-franchise organization?
So speaking for ventures, first and foremost, we're structured as a venture fund. We've got a 10-year charter. We're $100 million. We're managing.
Is it anchored exclusively by Intuitive?
It is. So Intuitive's a single LP structure. So we're, the investments we make, first and foremost, we're underwriting for financial returns, which is important. It gives me the alignment and my team with the startups and our co-investors. So that's important. And because we're financially aligned, we're optimizing for as much kind of the best outcome for those startups, where we can bring to bear partnership, collaboration opportunities with Intuitive. We're structured and set up to help facilitate those links. And certainly it's a lens with which we look at the opportunity for adding value and de-risking investments we make. But it's not the only success criteria for what we do. First and foremost, we're looking for those financial returns. Over time, it would be fantastic if our portfolio expands and grows and we can foster those collaborations and partnerships. And certainly that's part of the ecosystem kind of strategy here of really supporting the different players that are going to be influential on the markets we're backing. But I think, as I said before, minimally invasive care is such a broad spectrum, and so the more we can partner and invest in some of those companies for our venture fund and bring those closer to Intuitive, and I think it's going to be exciting for the field in general.
And lessons learned too, right? So there's so many lessons to be learned on this cross collaboration going on in all these tech. We see telehealth.
Yep.
Right, and that has introduced just an entirely different perspective to the health tech field, and I even call it health tech. It's not even med tech anymore. What should we be looking for over the next 12 months or so coming out of your venture group, and also in general from your perspective, what are you excited to be watching for, not as an investor, in the health tech market?
Yeah, so more investments to come, and probably more news on the portfolio that we've been building out. I think, again, this idea of focal therapeutics, I think, is a really exciting space, this convergence of medtech, biotech. I think we're going to see more sophisticated data and digital stories wrapped around traditional medtech plays. I think as the field generally becomes more accountable for outcomes, and we need to see and tell as early stage startups and companies that we can deliver value and health economics across an episode of care. So I think that's exciting, really looking for those opportunities where digital and device and connectivity kind of comes together. So I think there's some big plays. And then a theme I've already started hearing today in the conference, the payment model is shifting, right? I think traditional kind of fee-for-service, provider-customer, that is beginning to shift, and I think the role of payer providers, of payers, of employers, and how startups and innovations kind of engage, they build their data story, they build their justification to that different array of stakeholders. That's going to be a big influence in the next 5 years or so. So kind of tracking some of those early signals and looking for companies that are sophisticated around that, or at least building towards sophistication, will be exciting.
And there's an interesting spot that Intuitive sits in today, and certainly Medtronic, Boston Sci, J&J, none of them were culturally built around the digital, and Intuitive was. So I'm really interested to watch how that culturally is going to potentially have them jump ahead with technology acquisition and integration. And I've been public on this before, is J&J, Medtronic, and Boston Sci culturally are not digital, and Intuitive is. So I'm excited to watch what you out of the Ventures Group do and what Intuitive does along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, appreciate that. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much. It's fantastic.
Thanks for spending some good educating time with us.
Yeah, it's not too bad, right?
I'll do this all day.
No complaints. Thank you.
You bet. Joe Mullings from LSI. Be well.